The Zarlum Chronicles, Episode 2, Part 8.
Ruby began doing some research. Ruby knew exactly where Delphine was because most of the deaths of the assassins and the police who were killed by her were in Durham. So it didn't take a genius to work out where she went back to after a death. She traveled to the city and started looking everywhere for her. She was a master at searching for missing people. It was how she was a good assassin. She could find anyone anywhere with complete ease. However, Delphine hadn't survived this long by making her whereabouts easy to find. After a few hours of searching, she was able to deduce that she was using the sewers to travel around easier. From there, she traced all the tunnels back to where the police and the people who went after her disappeared from, eventually arriving at an old chemical war factory unit deep under the ground and kept hidden from normal people. That was where she had to be living. She entered the old building, seeing the old machinery and dust. There were shelves covered in different chemicals. Ruby almost thought it was empty. However, there were bedsheets, food, and photos of Delphine and her daughter, and other belongings of Delphine. So clearly she was in the right place. All she needed to do was find Delphine. And it didn't take very long. She was standing on a platform over a bunch of machines, about 200 feet above the ground, watching her waiting. Ruby went up the stairs to the platform, slowly approaching her. They stood at opposite sides of the platform, staring at each other for a second. They both seemed to be waiting for the other to make a move. Ruby held the handle of her sword, not yet taking it from the sheath, because she just wanted to talk.
Delphine, you need to listen to me. All of this has to stop.
Delphine shook her head.
Don't bother trying to talk me out of this. You shouldn't have come here. I could have given you a few days to run and hide, tell your family that everything was going to end. Then I would have come for you.
But I did come here. We can't change that now.
Delphine raised her sword just in case.
Why did you come?
Because you killed Cora.
Delphine looked down slightly.
I know. I had to. I had no choice in it.
We always have a choice. She was your friend, and you killed her. For what? Why did you kill her? Why did you kill all of these people?
I had to. I'm cursed by the list. The list demands I perform these killings.
Ruby looked shocked, raising her sword, knowing her being there was for nothing.
Why? The only way someone gets cursed by the list is by allowing it. Why did you allow the list to control you?
Delphine sighed.
Because my husband is dead. My daughter will be going the same way unless she is protected. As long as I do what the list declares, I protect her. Wouldn't you do the same for your family? I lost my husband, and I am not going to lose her. Not after all of this. I refuse.
We don't have families. We're assassins. We're not meant to. Having a family just makes things get in the way. But you went ahead and did it anyway. And look at what has come of it. One of your friends is dead. And you want to kill the others along with thousands of others? When was the last time you saw your daughter? When was the last time you felt happy? Healthy?
Delphine sighed.
Since I started 6 years ago? I didn't want her to see my face.
You haven't seen your daughter in 6 years? None of this is worth this. Imagine if your daughter could see you like this. It would destroy her to know that she is alive because thousands of people died. How can you be okay with that?
Well, what else am I meant to do? She is alive right now because of me, not because of the dead people.
Ruby shook her head.
You are so deluded. You're too far gone. This list has taken away everything from you, and you are too insane to see that. This list have corrupted your mind. And I have to kill you now to stop you from killing everyone else. I am sorry for this. But it's okay, because the woman I knew is truly dead. You just look like her.
They charged towards each other. Delphine slammed her sword down on her. Ruby quickly blocked it, then punched Delphine in the face as hard as she could, knocking her back slightly. Delphine looked angry and wildly slashed her sword, missing. Ruby jumped back, then ran into a kick to the side of Delphine's ribs, which she easily absorbed. Delphine got an idea, trapping Ruby's leg under her arm, locking it in place like a clamp. Ruby tried to resist, however, Delphine smashed her elbow down into her knee with all the strength she could muster, breaking her kneecap with a loud popping sound. Ruby yelled in pain, however, she knew that she had to get past the pain, or she would stop feeling pain permanently. So she headbutted Delphine away, then tried to put weight on her leg. However, it was agony. Ruby knew she would have to change her fighting style to just one leg, which would be harder, but she could do it. Delphine swung her sword down on Ruby, however she rolled to the right, dodging it easily. Delphine looked pretty annoyed, like she was trying to kill a fly, so she readied herself to swing down on her again. Ruby had dropped her sword, so there wasn't a lot she was able to do to prevent her attack. Ruby suddenly had an idea. Ruby threw herself upwards, onto her hands, then forced herself upwards using her one good leg to kick Delphine in the chest with as much strength as she could possibly muster, with the pain beating away at her like an alarm clock. Delphine was sent flying backwards, high. She hit the back of her head on a pipe above them, which flipped her over. She landed on the platform on her stomach with a loud clang, shaking the platform and knocking the wind out of her, feeling an aching point at the back of her head. Ruby slowly stood up, her whole body shaking, which sent vibrations through the entire platform because she had to hold the railing just to support herself.
We are equally matched. Not one can beat the other. You know this is true. So you can either stop fighting and use the 3 days by the list to work out a plan of how to help you, or we can continue fighting until one of us dies of terminal exhaustion. Honestly, I don't mind which one. It's up to you.
Delphine wasn't going to give up. She stood up, running her arm along her nose, feeling the blood covering her fingers.
That won't change anything. There is no escaping this, Ruby. I've already made my mind up.
Delphine ran forward. Raven shrugged, looking down.
Right. Hope you got a lot of sleep last night, because I guess it will be exhaustion.
Ruby simply dodged out the way, then slammed her foot down as hard as she could on her robe, which stopped her in her tracks. She flew upwards, then clanged to the ground. Ruby turned to her, stamping her foot down on her nose, hearing the cracking of it breaking.
Which fucking idiot told you to wear a cloak? They're so hard to fight in. That's like the first lesson of being an assassin. We clearly taught you nothing.
Delphine stood up in anger, kicking Ruby in her broken knee. Ruby hopped backwards, yelling in pain.
Ah, motherfucker!
They both picked up their swords and started fighting each other again, both getting faster and faster as they got even more angry at each other. Even with Ruby's injury, she was still a very good fighter. She had taught herself to not feel pain until she had to. So, in a fight, she was able to take a lot of damage and not have to feel it until she had won the fight. Or just died. As their swords clashed together, Ruby shouted,
"Did you forget it was me who taught you how to fight in the first fucking place?"
Delphine was pushing her back with her sword, fighting, saying,
Since then, I have trained under the monks of the fallen moon. I have learned skill you couldn't have dreamed of.
Raven blocked her blow, then headbutted her away.
Yeah, you have. And yet it still won't be enough.
They ran at each other, their swords clashing together again.
Meanwhile, back downstairs, neither of them realized that Willow, who managed to find where they were in a fraction of the time that Ruby managed to, had arrived. She entered the building, hearing them yelling and clashing their swords together above, so looked up, seeing them high above, both shouting and grunting in anger as they fought. The moment she realized Ruby wouldn't last much longer, she ran up the platform, sword ready at hand. While she ran, she realized she probably wasn't going to make it in time, and there wasn't a lot she could do about it. All she could do was watch helplessly. Ruby saw her below, which immediately gave her hope. However, what she didn't realize was, it was what caused her downfall, because she had let her guard down.
In that moment of weakness, Delphine grabbed her throat, holding it tight. Ruby tried to fight her, however, it was already too late. Delphine plunged her sword through her chest like butter. Ruby fell against Delphine's shoulder, shaking. Delphine kicked her away, pulling her sword out as she did. She fell against the metal railing, which bent around her like a liquid. She fell backwards, down 200 feet, with a loud clang, spreading a small pool of blood. Willow watched her fall past her, screaming in anger and pain, knowing there was nothing she could do. She was going to not just kill Delphine, but destroy her. Delphine watched her fell down, slamming into the ground heavily, out of breath. With Cora, she felt bad. However, she didn't feel the same way with Ruby at all. She felt like she had given Ruby a chance, and yet Ruby forced her into it. Willow ran up the platform. Delphine had barely had enough time to recover when her eyes fell upon Willow, seeing the rage in her eyes, and sighed, looking annoyed. Oh, for fuck's sake. Willow jumped forward, smacking her sword into Delphine so hard the blade shook violently.
Let's end this, bitch.
Delphine kicked her into the railing. However, Willow held on tight, pulling herself back up. They faced each other, both as angry as each other. Delphine shook her head, rolling up her sleeves. I'm sure you would have been next on the list anyway, so I have no problem killing you. However, I wish you hadn't come here. Willow shook her head.
I also have absolutely no issue in killing you in the slightest, but for a different reason. Do you remember when we were in prison? When we first met each other all those years ago?
Delphine actually smiled for the first time in a long time. You didn't trust me. You used to be a pirate, you always said. That grew mistrust. You robbed the wrong people's sailing boat, and that's what got you sent to prison in the first place. Willow nodded.
The reason I started trusting you was because you saved me in prison, from those assholes who wanted to kill me. You saved me. And so we stuck together. We were close. We ruled over the prison, and that's how we met the others. I miss the people who were back then.
So do I. But we're not there anymore. We had to grow up.
You're not you anymore. And all of this has made me realize when we first met, we were friends. And with everything I've seen here, you killing Cora and Ruby, you killing all of our friends, I originally thought you were now my enemy. But no, you're not my enemy. It's deeper than that.
Delphine frowned. Then what are we? Willow paused.
Well, seeing you now, I know exactly how to describe you. We're not friends. We're not enemies. We're just people who share the same memories. And that is why it is going to be so easy to drive my blade into your heart and destroy you. And then, when you fall to the ground, and you realize you will never see your daughter again, and you will be going to hell, where everyone you have ever killed will be torturing you forever, I just want you to know that I will be walking out through that door over there, and I will never think about you again.
If I die, my daughter dies with me, so I am not going to let that happen.
Unfortunately, that's not my problem, or my concern. You fucked up when you killed our friends.
Since when have you been so cold?
Willow sniggered.
Coming from the woman who killed her friends and hundreds of others. I'm hardly the one on trial here.
They ran at each other fast. They started sword fighting each other. Delphine realized that Willow was incredibly fast with a sword, and with her previous fight and injury, Willow was quickly winning. But Delphine hadn't gone through all forms of hell to lose a fight. She was determined that everything she did wouldn't amount to nothing. Delphine was pushing Willow backwards. Their swords were cutting up the railing, causing sparks to fly everywhere. Delphine kicked Willow into a room full of machines and shelves full of chemicals for a long won and forgotten war. They continued fighting. Willow got pushed against a pipe and saw Delphine swing down on her. She jumped to the side, rolling to a low position. Delphine's sword went through the pipe, which caused a massive line of steam to shoot out into Delphine's eyes. She ripped the sword out, rubbing her face in anger and pain, realizing she had become blind in one eye. Willow got to her height.
You know, it's funny, I'm not even on the list. This is just personal for you, isn't it, you sick fuck?
Delphine rubbed her eye, being unable to see her properly because of the damage to her eye. Correct, but you'll be on the list soon enough. May as well get you out the way now. Then I'll have nothing else left to lose. Then I will be untouchable. Willow shook her head in anger.
And then what? This just continues on forever. You truly don't want to feel anything. Do you hear yourself when you talk, or have you actually had a lobotomy? When are you going to realize you did all of this shit to protect your daughter? But soon, she's going to die. It doesn't matter how. She could be murdered or die of disease or old age. All you've done is delay it for a while.
The monks are protecting her. Nothing can happen to her while I do this.
Willow actually started laughing.
And who told you that? The monks? Oh, please. We were fighting the monks, you moron. The ice, the darkness, that vampire that nearly killed all of us, that was them. I mean, you were the one who shot the Dracula. You were the one who killed her. How do you know the monks didn't put the first curse on you for some sick revenge? And even if they didn't, you killing the Dracula got this curse on you, and that wouldn't have happened if they didn't bring the Dracula to life to begin with.
Delphine considered what she said. The curse has nothing to do with the Dracula.
Oh, come on, you stupid moron. We killed the Dracula. A week later, what happened? Your car drove off the side of the road, and a week later your house burned down, and you were on the streets. Think about it. God damn it, you complete idiot. All the signs have been here the whole time. The monks have manipulated you into doing their bidding. You're nothing but a pawn to them.
You're trying to confuse me.
No, I'm telling you the truth, you fucking idiot. The truth you should have worked out yourself. We taught you how to kill, but clearly we should have taught you how to use your common sense.
Delphine shouted. It doesn't matter if that's true or not. I have to do this. So my daughter can have a better life without the bad luck. She deserves a better life.
I agree. She deserves a life. However, so do you. I mean, just look at yourself. You've been doing this for 6 years and look at you. You look like you've aged 800 years. You look like you do meth under a drainage ditch. I imagine you want to do this until your daughter dies of old age. How old is she now? 20? 21? Let's say she lives to be 90. That's 70 years of you killing people every 3 days. That's thousands of people, and I can't wait to see what you look like at the end of that.
Delphine seemed to pause for a second. For the first time, she seemed conflicted. However, realized she wasn't going to be talked out of it that easily, so they started fighting again. Willow quickly realized that her words had affected Delphine very badly, because her fighting had completely changed. She seemed to be very conflicted. Delphine wasn't fighting as hard as she was before, so Willow decided she needed to give in to that. Willow got pushed against a shelf, hearing it rattle violently. However, she didn't pay attention to that because she was looking at Delphine. She saw Delphine's sword and quickly ducked. It sliced through 2 of the supports of the shelf, causing it to fall down towards Willow. Before she could move out of the way, some chemicals crashed down onto her face. Willow immediately felt blinding pain to the side of her face, resulting in her screaming in agony as her skin was eaten away. She fell to the ground, putting a hand to her face in a desperate attempt to get the chemicals off. However, she only ended up burning her hand. Willow grabbed another part of the shelf to support herself through the pain. However, it collapsed under her weight. Willow fell to the ground as more chemicals landed on top of her, causing all sorts of strange effects.
The shelf also fell directly on top of her, pinning her down. She tried to push it off, however, she was truly pinned down, unable to move at all. After an intense struggle, her eyes fluttered closed as she passed out from the pain and the smell of the chemicals. Delphine stood watching the entire event, and when she saw her eyes closed, she assumed that Willow was dead, and didn't want to check because she imagined she had done enough already and didn't want to go checking her corpse. With Delphine's heart and brain in intense pain from what she had done, she left, packing up all of her stuff to find a new home, the words still ringing in her ears.
A few hours after Delphine had left, the hand of Willow slowly twitched, forming into a fist as her eyes shot open. She was alive. However, she had a massive headache and pain across the right side of her face. She pushed the chemical containers off her, hearing them roll away. Willow pushed herself into a sitting position, feeling the glass clink off her. Willow grabbed a different shelf, using it to get to her feet. Her face felt strange. When she first woke up, she felt pain. However, it disappeared when she stood up. Willow poked her face. However, if she hadn't known she was touching her face, she would have no idea, because she had lost all feeling to the right side of her face, and she had gone completely blind in her right eye.
Willow went out the room, noticing a mirror opposite her. She approached it, looking at her new appearance, which was drastically different. The right side of her face was horribly burned. Most of her skin looked like it had been melted. Some chemicals melted right down to her bone. The most annoying thing about the burns was the fact that the chemicals had deformed her face to the point that speaking was very difficult. It almost always sounded like she was having a stroke. Her voice was incredibly slurred. She also had holes in her cheeks, so drinking was extremely difficult and it would leak out. Eating was also challenging because she would unknowingly be choosing the inside of her cheek to pieces because she couldn't feel it. People found it difficult to speak to her because as she spoke, the muscles in her forehead and cheeks would move, and people would be able to see them working away.
Willow went out the room, noticing a mirror opposite her. She approached it, looking at her new appearance, which was drastically different. The right side of her face was horribly burned. Most of her skin looked like it had been melted. Some chemicals melted right down to her bone. The most annoying thing about the burns was the fact that the chemicals had deformed her face to the point that speaking was very difficult. It almost always sounded like she was having a stroke. Her voice was incredibly slurred. She also had holes in her cheeks, so drinking was extremely difficult and it would leak out. Eating was also challenging because she would unknowingly be chewing the inside of her cheek to pieces because she couldn't feel it. People found it difficult to speak to her because as she spoke, the muscles in her forehead and cheeks would move, and people would be able to see them working away.
She looked closer at her right eye, noticing it was permanently white, and her eye always felt horribly irritated because she was unable to close her eyelid. But after a while, her body would fix that problem in the most horrible way. However, one of the strangest differences was her hair. The left side of her hair was still jet black like before. However, the right side of her hair was now white like Cruella. She really hated the look and feel of her new face, and everything about it seemed to be a bad thing. However, she did like the hair. Dyeing hair wasn't really a thing back then, so she was truly unique. She was about to leave when she heard a sound above her. She looked up to see a magpie staring down at her from a window, the same one from before. She nodded, knowing.
Right, fair enough. God, I got the damn message.
She smiled to herself, then shot it with her pistol, watching a plume of feathers rain down around her. Willow left the building with revenge in her heart. What Willow didn't know was, the only reason she was alive
was because the list made it. So Delphine had to be the one to kill her, not the chemicals. Any other person would have died from the brain damage and pain, but she was able to survive. And now she was pissed off and ready for round 2. Willow started immediately thinking of how to get her revenge. She got very desperate, wanting to not just kill Delphine, but hurt her, and horribly. She knew exactly how to do so. Magpie entered the room looking around, placing her sword on a hook. It was actually a pretty nice room. There were photos on the walls, a desk in the corner, a large wardrobe, and strangely, she had a window in the corner, despite them being deep under the ground. It was even more weird by the fact that sunlight was flooding into the room. The monks seemed to want to make her as happy as possible, which was a very odd concept for Willow to think about, because it didn't make any sense. The monks who killed millions of people wanted to make Delphine's daughter happy? It was like a snake wanting to make a rat safe. Delphine's daughter was sitting on her bed reading. Willow sat down on a random chair.
Wow, look how big you've gotten. I almost feel bad opposing your creation in the first place.
She looked up and looked shocked at Willow's appearance.
Oh my god, Willow! It's been so long. What happened to your, face?
Willow shrugged.
It's a thing that comes with the job.
Delphine's daughter smiled, pointing to her own head.
The hair is a good look for you. You sort of look like a magpie.
She nodded.
I supposed I do. And I kind of like the hair.
Delphine's daughter smiled.
So do I. Are you okay, though? You look awful.
Thank you, it's greatly appreciated, and I am fine. This actually happened recently. An hour ago, in fact. But that is not the reason I am here.
Her daughter sat up, looking a little concerned.
Then why are you here?
Willow placed her pistol on the table. She wasn't entirely sure how to tell her the news, but knew it was the only way to save the lives of thousands of people. The deaths had to stop. It couldn't go on.
Okay. Now I need you to listen to me very carefully because this is very serious. And I understand it's a lot to hear and a lot to take in. But everything I am about to tell you is true. I swear to you.
Delphine's daughter rested her book down, concentrating on what Willow was about to say.
What is it? What's going on? I don't get a lot of news down here. Is it my mother?
Well, yes, it is. And I can tell you don't get much news because if you did, you would 100% know this. Everyone on Zarlum knows.
She frowned.
No, what?
Willow sighed.
Okay, here goes. What do you think your mother is doing right now?
Fighting with the monks to make the world a better place. That's what the monks told me, and what she told me 6 years ago. Why? Is she dead? Did something horrible happen to her?
Willow shook her head.
Well, that's the problem. You get all your information from the monks, and I can tell you now, it's all a bunch of steaming horse shit. They don't tell you the news. They tell you what will make you the most happy. But I can tell you, your mother isn't dead. She is very much alive. And that is the problem. The monks and her have lied to you. Maybe the monks believe they are making a better world, but to do that, they are killing millions of people. And as you know, I'm not normally one of the people to save the world, but I'm one of the idiots who lives there. But that is a different conversation for another time. Right now, I need to talk to you about your mother. For the past 6 years, she has been under a curse called the List. It is incredibly dangerous and has corrupted her. She has to kill a person every 3 days decided by the List. And if she doesn't, the person she protects will die. And she has been protecting you with this list, killing hundreds in the hope she can protect you.
Delphine's daughter looked shocked and horrified.
That can't be true. Why would she do that? You must be lying to me. You must be. She wouldn't. She couldn't. My mother is a good person. She wouldn't do that. She wouldn't ever even think about doing anything like that.
Willow leaned forward, holding her hand.
I'm so sorry. I truly am. But it is true. She killed Ruby and Cora and hundreds of others. I'm next. She thinks I'm dead. But it won't take her long to find out the truth and come for me. And then afterwards, there will be no end. This is not going to stop, unless we do something. Now, when she tried to kill me, I wasn't on the list. When I finally appear, she will have 3 days before she gets desperate. There has to be something we can do to stop her. I mean, all of this madness and bloodshed, it has to stop. She can't just keep on going and keep on killing people forever. I think if anyone can stop her, it's you. Would you really want to live while having thousands of people die for you to keep it that way?
Delphine's daughter looked down in shock.
Could you leave me alone for a moment? I just can't wrap my head around any of this.
Willow nodded and left the room, leaving her alone. Delphine's daughter looked at her hands.
She's killed all of those people for me. All of those people. Their blood is on my hands, and the next people's blood will be on my head. When is this going to end? I can't continue on knowing this.
She, like Willow, saw only one end to Delphine's story. She noticed the pistol that Willow left behind.
It's the only way to stop her insanity.
Meanwhile, somewhere across the city, Delphine knew the list had updated, so took a look. However, was confused, seeing it said, Willow. But how? She was still out there somewhere. She survived. Delphine closed her eyes. Her senses were able to tell her that Willow was in the temples. That was exactly where her daughter was, and that made her very worried. She started heading over to the catacomb temples as quick as her body would take her. She felt strange, knowing she could potentially see her daughter again. And she would have to explain that about her new look. And then she would have to explain about her curse. She would have to explain exactly why she did what she did. And why she couldn't stop. When she arrived, she went round a corner, seeing Willow walking up and down outside her daughter's room. Willow turned to Delphine and was about to fight her. However, Delphine wasn't playing around anymore. She walked forward, grabbing Magpie around the neck, pinning her against the wall.
What did you do? What the fuck did you do?
Willow tried kicking her away. However, Delphine was so panicked about her daughter, she didn't seem to feel anything, and she didn't react in the slightest. Willow choked out.
I didn't do anything. Get off me.
Love the new face, bitch. Would you like me to do the other side? Why are you here?
Because I came to the only person who could talk sense into you, you fucking insane bitch.
Delphine then noticed her daughter. She had come out the room when Willow was pinned against the wall. They both looked at her. Her daughter looked terrified.
Mom, what are you doing? What have you done?
Delphine let Willow go, throwing her aside into the wall, approaching her daughter.
It's so good to hear your voice.
She tried to approach her for a hug. However, her daughter backed away, looking terrified of her appearance. Delphine looked slightly worried. Have you been okay?
No. What have you done? You've killed so many people for me.
Delphine looked shocked and annoyed.
The monks weren't meant to tell you about that.
They didn't. Willow did.
Delphine looked over at Willow with hatred in her eyes.
Don't pay attention to that asshole.
She looked back at her daughter.
Listen, you need to understand that I had to do it. I had no other.
She cut her off.
Don't even try. I saw what you were about to do to her, and I know about everyone else. You've lied to me and everyone around me. You killed for me. How many innocent people were going to die before you could let me go? And I am going to end it. I am finally going to stop you once and for all. To save your soul.
Delphine's daughter slammed her door shut. Delphine ran to the door, slamming her body into it. However, she couldn't get it open.
Open the door! Hey, open this door!
She started kicking and pounding on the door. Willow grabbed her belt and realized she left her gun in the room. She slid down the wall as she realized what was about to happen.
Oh, crap.
Delphine turned around.
Oh crap? What's oh crap? What happened? What did you do?
I left my...
However, before she could finish her sentence, they heard the loud, haunting sound of a gunshot echo through Delphine's soul. Delphine turned to the door with a horrified look on her face. She charged into the door, knocking it off its hinges, seeing it fall to the ground, spreading wood chips everywhere. Delphine charged inside, terrified, seeing the most horrific sight she had ever seen in her life. Her daughter was laying on her bed with Willow's pistol in her hand, which she had used to shoot herself in the head. Delphine fell against the wall, crying, screaming in the most anger and pain she had ever felt as her heart and soul was ripped apart.
She realized at that moment that all the killings and all the destruction, bloodshed, and her going as far as to kill her friends that same day had all been for nothing at all. Delphine held her daughter, cradling her in her arms, not wanting to lose her and accept the fact that it had been for nothing. She turned back to the door, expecting to see Willow there. However, she had decided to be a coward and run away in Delphine's weakened state. Delphine picked up the pistol off the bed.
I am going to fucking kill that bitch with her own pistol. She has taken everything from me.
She cocked it, turning to the nurse that would help Delphine's daughter throughout the day, who was also heartbroken by the death.
Wasn't killing people that got her like this to begin with.
She raised the pistol, shooting her in the head. She fell back on the bed, spitting blood everywhere. Delphine, as she knew she had officially crossed the line, and didn't care. I let one person escape. She looked down at her daughter's corpse.
I won't be making that mistake again.
She turned, leaving not caring any more about the list, which was still in her pocket, and she expected it to give her names.
Delphine became overcome by grief. She immediately learned that because her daughter was dead, the list didn't have a reason to give her names like she was released from the agreement, so it wasn't really needed anymore. The list burned itself away. Delphine no longer had to follow it. However, Delphine didn't care. She didn't even need the list anymore. She was just a killer. Before, when she was killing, she felt like she had a reason. The list and her daughter. However, now she was just full of rage, which was an even better reason in her mind. It was horrible for her to think of her words coming back to her. She wanted to be unstoppable and feel nothing. With everything gone, she had done that. Before, she only had one target and would attempt to only kill that one target. However, now everyone was her target. Anyone who got in her way would be destroyed.
She even started killing people just because they were there. She killed everyone, innocent, guilty, males, females, children. She didn't care. She did that for a few months, knowing her ultimate aim was to find and destroy Willow. However, that was very difficult because Willow was a master at hiding and knew that she had messed up in a big way. What Delphine didn't know was if she found Willow and killed her, then what? Nothing she could do would change the horrible outcome of what happened and stop the pain in her heart. Before, Delphine was working from the list, so she had a reason to be doing what she was doing. However, now, she was absolutely furious and going through grief, and that made her stronger, which terrified Willow.
Willow went on the run from everyone. She watched on the news as Delphine went from village to village, slaughtering everyone. Willow was worried because she assumed that when the curse broke, the list would let her go. But now she didn't seem to care about it at all. So before Willow could have had a conversation with her, and maybe turn her against the list, but not anymore, she was now just pure evil. And Willow was terrified Delphine would find her, and if she did, there was no doubt in her mind that she would 100% win that fight, because there was nothing holding her back, no weakness. The only thing she had to stop her was death, and that made someone dangerous. Willow knew it was her fault. If she hadn't spoken to her daughter and left her gun in the room, she wouldn't have done it. Willow really didn't mean for that to happen. She assumed when Delphine turned up they would speak, and Delphine would realize everything she had done meant she couldn't watch her daughter grow up, and she would stop and let them both die. But she never expected for her daughter to kill herself. In the future, Willow would be seen as a hero for taking down the evil Delphine. However, she believed she didn't deserve that title. The future story had been changed, so her daughter didn't end her life from Willow, she found out from the monks, then ended her life, and Willow had nothing to do with it. And she really didn't like that. She tried to stay hidden, however, she knew that Delphine would find her eventually. Because of her new face and hair, she kind of stood out a bit. And even without the list's ability to tell her where Magpie was, Delphine would still be able to find her. So she went to the only people she hoped would help, the monks.
I thought she wasn't under the list anymore. Why is she still killing people?
The monks explained.
She is no longer under the list curse.
Willow pointed outside, confused.
So why is she still killing random people? 4 villages have been completely destroyed in the past month. She is obviously doing this.
Her daughter was murdered.
No, she killed herself. I didn't kill her,
Zenith explained.
Think of it however you like.
What the hell does that mean?
Unfortunately, she is no longer under our list. Therefore, there is nothing we can do to stop her. We have our own problems. Go and sort her out yourself.
So they were no help at all. And they really did have their own problems, because the court had been working for those years to take apart their empire bit by bit, and horribly. It was working.
Meanwhile, the court had finally made a decision. They had been waiting for years for their ultimate aim, to take the world from the shadows, and it was finally coming up to the point of finishing it. However, they couldn't do that while Delphine was killing all of their subjects, so they had to get her out the way first. Luckily, they had a solution to this small problem. They had created a secret new group of master assassins known as the Redheads, because all of them had natural blood-red hair. They weren't sure why and what caused them to have red hair. It wasn't genetic. It didn't matter what the mother did in pregnancy, and it was extremely rare. The natural redheads were extremely skilled. They seemed to be born with an impressive amount of fighting and intelligence skills, which seemed to come naturally to them. There were also other factions of different hair colors, such as green, blue, and pink, all having different abilities. However, only the redheads were controlled by the court. As a matter of fact, the blueheads were actually against the court, and they'd have a rivalry for hundreds upon hundreds of years. The court decided to deploy the redheads in their very first mission. 15 natural redheads went to where Delphine was and started fighting her. Without the power of the list anymore, Delphine wasn't able to fight them as easily as before. It was a difficult fight, however they managed to defeat her without Willow having to help. However, Delphine wasn't actually dead. She was just in a kind of dreamlike state, just like the Ice Queen from before. The court imprisoned her deep under the world in an unmarked grave. Knowing she was still alive, however, had no choice, they couldn't kill her. The list seemed to still have some kind of power over her even now. The problem was, she attempted to escape 14 times throughout history, and actually managed it 4 times, causing mass damage across the world. The court finally used drastic measures, using magic, so the only way she could wake up was for a being of extreme power to cast a spell
which would wake her up. And the only person strong enough was Dracula. That was exactly what they wanted. She would now be asleep forever. They took her to an old tomb made of the toughest metals on the planet and used a spell to make it even stronger. Even with the Dracula spell, they still had to check her every few weeks to check her brain waves and her heartbeat to make sure she was still alive to stop her waking up. The court and even the monks were terrified of the day she would one day wake up. They just had to hope the monks didn't even bring the Dracula back, which was a problem because they were really trying their best to bring her back. Now Delphine was finally dealt with. The court turned their attention to the monks. They believed they had finally served their purpose and could be pushed away for them to take over. The monks had been losing their power over people for years, so it wasn't hard for the court to destroy them. Zenith knew that soon the court would arrive to destroy them. So finally, when the court sent their redheads into the catacombs, they found the monks, including Zenith, had cast a very complicated spell, which literally trapped the monks inside a painting placed right at the bottom of the catacombs, locked away, guarded by skeleton creatures, just in case someone managed to somehow get to the bottom of the catacombs. It was the best defense they could have that would last forever. When the monks were finally out the way, they had served their purpose to the court. To the people, the monks were evil and made the world so chaotic it was difficult to live in. So when they disappeared, they were informed it was their government that did it, not the court, because they had to stay in control in secrecy.
The court cultivated a world so chaotic, they had to stay in command.
When the people had finally accepted them as the rulers, the court started working on making sure they were completely invisible to normal people, so no one knew of their existence. And if anyone found out about them or threatened their perfect society, they would be dealt with because they had control of the police. So if someone died, they were able to cover it up. 80% of all political killings had something to do with the court. They also controlled the armies of the world, and if anyone disagreed with them, the army would immediately be deployed, which was why they were able to stay in control, because they linger behind the scenes of every part of Zarlum, watching, observing, and shaping their world. The court also did something that others would see as pure evil. They created their own shadow army, called the Shadows. The Shadows were actually a former division of the monks, so the court pretended to be lead monks, continuing to lead the religion in the direction they wanted. So the Shadows truly had no idea that their religious leaders were actually the court. They believed the monks still ruled the world, and they always would. Of course, some Shadows knew the truth, but 75% had no idea. The court even set up buildings across the world to train kids as young as 4-year-olds to become Shadows, constantly reinforcing the idea that what they were doing was justified by religious belief. Most of the Shadows were trained by redheads, so they could be the best fighters in the world. The court also appointed a Queen of Zarlum, who controlled the entire planet, but of course, they controlled her, and she had to do everything they asked of her. It was a very cruel system, being ordered around by the court without being able to actually do anything she wanted. Zarlum was also set up so it was always a queen of Zarlum, and people liked that. She lived on one of the biggest cities right over the central city hub of Zarlum, being New York, and they would always never know who the court actually were. Even the court members didn't know who each other were apart from 01. He knew all of them without them ever knowing who he was. The court finally had the control they had been working towards for hundreds of years,
while the court took over the world.
Willow started trying to get over what had happened. She had to admit to herself that she was the one who pushed Delphine over the line. She never meant for her daughter to kill herself, however it happened. And there was no way she could look at it as not her fault. She was enormously disappointed and hated herself for not being able to stop Delphine. And because she hadn't, she had lost everything. Willow decided she would stop being an assassin. She just couldn't do it. It brought too much pain, and when she killed, it just had no meaning, only bringing her pain of a past that now brought her nothing but regret. However, she had no money. With her face and past, it was hard to get herself a job. So she decided to go back to her roots. She removed all her armor pieces and got dressed in a black leather corset and tight black leather trousers, a dark brown coat and hat, becoming a pirate, which had started becoming popular again after the monks had taken over. When she arrived at the docks, they didn't take her very seriously. Her face had healed a bit, but she still looked awful. But they were happy to take her. All they needed to know was,
"What's your name, ugly?"
Willow sighed.
My name is Magpie. My name is Magpie.
They wrote that down, and away she went with them on a ship. She faked Willow's death, even having a burial site for her, then took on her new name of Magpie, creating herself a fake past, even having a guy make her fake documents. 5 years after the events, she managed to get herself a husband and 2 children, even though she was against the idea of Delphine doing it. However, the time of the monks was over. The planet was becoming a much safer and more livable place. She said goodbye to her husband and children, promising she would return with money for them. Her family really didn't mind, and her husband had been a pirate. That was how they met. Her children had been conceived on a boat on a drunken night out, both times, and they knew she was doing it for her family. However, Magpie couldn't think like that, because that was Delphine's motivation. She didn't want to become like her. For the moment, she was just a simple pirate, washing the decks and lowering the sails. But there was a lot of room for promotion. And with pirates, there was only really one way to get a promotion. And it wasn't exactly pretty. Magpie didn't want to admit it to herself, but the truth was she wasn't doing it for money. The real reason was because she was trying to forget about Delphine, and the only way she could forget was to run as far as she could. She couldn't get further than the middle of the ocean, and so that was her life. The end of episode 2 of the Zarlum Chronicles, but not the end of Magpie's story, because next time, we're looking into how exactly Magpie became Magpie.